The students say goodbye to each other. They don't look like ordinary students. One has a katana behind his back. The other is floating right in the air. A girl in a black suit is holding a rectangular plate with her back. A black-haired guy stands at the window and watches the departing. He turns to other people's voices, who are discussing which classes they have chosen. The student boasts that he has chosen a summoner class and now he has 3 contact summons. In the classroom, in addition to students who are dressed in mismatched clothes, some in t-shirts, others in kimonos, a white wolf is sitting on the desk, a red bat is flying in the air, and there is a pink flower nearby. The guy with his hair slicked back calls to join his team, and he will definitely help them with the entrance exams to the academy. Another disciple in a white cape and with a staff in his hands asks skeptically that he, a noble priest, needs to join his team. Actually, this interlocutor should join the priest's team as a junior. The student jumps up from the table and shouts that since she is so amazing, then let her fight with him. The interlocutor asks in this case to stomp on the platform. They will sort it out there. The guy standing at the window watching this scene sighs heavily. It's been 3 years since he entered this world. This time is quite enough to understand all these oddities. Exactly 70 years have passed since his reality merged with the game. Human life has undergone tremendous changes. Just like in the game, levels, classes, and equipment appeared in the world. They became the standard of human wealth. Raising the level can greatly strengthen the human body, and class and skills can contribute to the effective use of considerable strength. However, nothing is so simple. The world that was before was destroyed in the blink of an eye, having lost peace forever. From the game, in addition to superhumans, terrifying monsters were born. Not only them, besides them, demonic disasters began to appear, which sowed all this chaos. People, from the lack of another way out of such a situation, have to fight with them. The black-haired man, who got into such a world, grins reality, where the main role is played by force, makes his existence more interesting every day. The door to the classroom is loudly opened by a man with gray hair, who immediately orders everyone to stop quarreling and go home after class. Students do not expect such a loud appearance of a teacher who reminds them that their families will worry about these fools. A man turns to a black-haired guy, Yun Chen, saying that tomorrow is the entrance to the academy. He asks if he managed to change the class, and if not, then let him not joke with such an important thing. Yun Chen doesn't intend to stay without a class, does he? The guy breaks out in a cold sweat after this question. The man swears at him. Chen is completely confused in himself. Even if he has a lot of skills now, they are all primary and do not have particularly great power. The teacher wisely says that the closer he gets to the edge, the more shortcomings he will meet on his way. In addition, a person with a class gets a lot more attribute points and useful skills. Chen himself knows this very well. The teacher instructively asks to listen to his advice, because by changing the class, Yun will open up many more ways than without a class at all. Chen smiles. The man doesn't have to worry, because the guy wants a lot more than what the teacher says. Yun does not say this, but in his thoughts he informs that he is going to rise to the top of this world. As for the attribute points and skills that the student currently has at 0, he will be able to get them. Not even the name of the class. This is not such a problem for Yun Chen, because he has a useful system. Every time a student performs some physical exercises, system prompts tell you how many times it is worth doing this activity. Thus, Yun increases not only the endurance of his own body, but also points of skills and attributes, which cannot but rejoice. Many receive such good rewards only after passing the hardest tests, and he himself gets from simple daily rewards. As teacher Jin said earlier, the classless ones have a lot of disadvantages. One of the main ones is the insufficient number of skill points, although there are quite a lot of skills themselves, but they are all basic, so they are not particularly strong. In this regard, Chen is lucky. He has no restrictions. As long as there are enough skill points, the student can upgrade the skills of any existing class, and the system just gives these very points. Yun only needs time to fulfill his plan. It's easy to say that Chen is a versatile player who can get into any class. Judging by the system messages, the basic skills have been upgraded. It is worth adding only some attributes. Yun Chen can't help but praise the system. It's really good. Everything can be done quickly, and no one will see your stats. It saves a lot of problems. The student, as usual, distributes attributes equally, each with 2 points. However, not only daily tasks allow you to get points, there are actually quite a lot of ways to get rewarded. However, the rewards always match the difficulty, and the reward meanwhile has never failed Chen yet. He firmly promises himself that he will definitely win tomorrow. The next day, rows of students stand on a huge platform, and teachers are in front of each class. Jin reminds me of one thing that he has talked about many times before, but now he will tell me the last one. There are 3 types of difficulty: simple, complex, and nightmare. As soon as the gate with the skulls on it opens, it will mean that the dungeon is open, which means that the exam has begun. The higher the difficulty, the higher the score after. The score also depends on how many people will be in the team. The fewer people, the better. The teacher adjusts his glasses and asks for everything possible. Copies of the monsters they will meet will be real. If the students lose, they will have a sad end, death. Even if their goal at some point will not be victory, then let them at least try to survive. The doors open, from which smoke comes out. Jin loudly announces that the exam has begun. Now the students must enter one of the gates. The givers disappear right on the spot. The dungeon is called the Goblin Dungeon. There are 3 difficulties here, as the teacher said. From 1 to 5 people are needed to pass. The note informs that this is an unknown dungeon that is full of goblin settlements, and these monsters are passionately fond of human blood and flesh. Students begin to be distributed who where. Mentors watch them through taps and can't help but note that most people went with groups, which is quite logical and understandable. Their lives are at stake. Most likely, only the adshurs will dare to go alone. One of the observers suddenly notices a student who is definitely not an adshur, although he is not in the team. Another teacher is amazed. This guy didn't want to live. Besides, he looks pretty familiar. There is only one participant in the Nightmare Dungeon, and it is none other than Yun Chen from the 3rd class. Not only is he not of the right class for such a dungeon, but he is also here alone. Yun Chen jumps off a high cliff and lands beautifully. It looks like he really wants to die. The observer pokes his finger at the screen, wondering, where did he get such a strange equipment? How can a student like Chen have so many weapons? Didn't he change classes? Yes, he's without a class. Of course, there are those who do not change the class, but this guy is not a fool at all and should understand that only death awaits him alone. Even though he moves amazingly, classless ones can have any low-level skills that are often useless in battles. Teacher Jin's eyes almost fall out of their sockets from how much he opened his eyes. He, like no one else, understands that things are going badly. The man grabs his hair. He can't believe that this idiot hasn't changed classes after all. Not only that, he went to the Dungeon of Nightmares alone, which means certain death. The old man standing next to Jin strictly demands an explanation from Teacher Chen. This person is none other than the dean of Dongyun School. Covered with a cold experience, Sheng stutteringly explains that his student's talent is good enough to stay out of class, so it shouldn't be a big problem for him. Yun Chen, meanwhile, is traveling through the dungeon. There are human bones lying around him, and there is not a single living soul around. As expected from the gates to the Dungeon of Nightmares, not only is there no one but monsters, but even the atmosphere here is creepy. The guy is not at all afraid of what is happening here. He boldly goes on and disappears into the darkness. The observers discuss Chen's equipment. It consisted of equipment, a gun, a staff, a pistol shield, even gloves. With so many skills and weapons, will Yun be able to survive? The observer says that this is a copy of the nightmare level. Countless people have died there, so the student must be trembling with fear and probably won't dare to go inside. However, the man next to him distracts him from his reasoning. He asks to pay attention to the fact that that person did not just enter the dungeon, but ran into it. The student is not afraid of this place. He passes it in a hurry and is not going to stop. Yun has a basic swordsman skill, which helps him to amaze the eyes of the audience. Speed. Ahead, the student sees a goblin settlement, to which he rushes at full speed. Monsters quickly notice the approaching prey. With nasty grins and burning eyes, they, who with what in their hands, run in his direction, anticipating an early victory and lunch. Shen, stopping at a distance from them, directs the magician's staff using his main skill, a fireball. He flies straight into the settlement of green monsters and knocks most of them on the spot, leaving mountains of burning corpses and ashes around. The observers open their mouths. What the hell was that just now? Are you saying that the disciple just used a fireball? He cast it instantly. Not only is it striking to the eye, the power is not inferior to the speed, it was much stronger than that of ordinary magicians. Then another shocking event occurs, which still makes you stand with your mouth open. The weapon that was in the hands of the student turned out to be not a staff at all. It changes shape right before our eyes. Now Chen is holding a sword staff made of black iron. Adds 5 wisdom points as a staff. Adds 5 strength points as a sword. The guy uses another basic swordsman skill, the tread of the wind, soaring into the air. The goblin, who until recently, along with his comrades, was eager to fight, stuttering and bleeding, looks at the enemy in front of him. Before he comes out of his stupor, Chen pierces him with a sword and gracefully lands on the ground. The remaining creatures are not going to give up even after this. They are still eager to fight, now even with more zeal than before, wanting to avenge their comrades. Yun Chen cuts through the air, even imperceptibly. People look at him in admiration. This is the main skill of the magic swordsman Flame-Splitting Wind. A very beautiful skill. However, there are still questions about his abilities, and the most important of them is that are the primary skills so strong? Some observers rejoice, others continue to be horrified by the student's abilities. The girl in the stands jumps up and throws her arms up, shouting that Yun Chen should not give up. He will pass these entrance exams. 2 interlocutors turn to her, who all this time, without taking their eyes off, were watching the student. They start talking about the fact that this guy is running at such a speed with all this heavy equipment. The other agrees, because Yun's back should be overloaded, and even with the speed skill, Chen could not just be so frisky. A man with freckles suggests that the guy may have invested well in the attribute of physical strength. However, even if this is the case, how did the fireball turn out to be so powerful? Yes, and the power that he used just turned out to be too strong. The dean frowns, wondering what's wrong with this guy, because his skills are too strong for someone who turns out to be not involved in any of the classes. Jin nervously scratches his head, admitting that Yun Chen's talent is called omnipotent, which can remove the restriction twice. The dean says that between the ages of 12 and 25, only a small percentage of people can independently awaken their natural abilities. Depending on their talent, people choose a class. Some have magical abilities, which is why they obviously become magicians. Others show fighting talents to increase physical strength and attacks. Then beginners choose classes according to the type of swordsman. However, in the world there are, where without them, quite specific talents, such as cooking and cleaning. All this does not negate the fact that the choice of class depends on the awakening of talent. The dean admits that the Almighty is a rather weak talent. He only increases the strength of skills at C+ at the initial stages. This will undoubtedly come in handy in the early stages, but the students will not go far on this. The man standing behind the dean notes his fighting talents, which are at a height, as well as magical ones. However, the girl next to him says that the student, on top of everything else, uses everything he has smoothly and completely. Jin agrees with all the conclusions made. That's why he advised Chen to change classes, because the further he goes, the weaker he will be. However, Yun Chen is not complaining about his own strength at the moment. He goes further down the dungeon, leaving behind mountains of corpses. The soles of the guy's shoes are stained with blood. The student stops in front of a door that turns out to be the entrance to the next room. Behind the closed doors, there is a long staircase, at the foot of which the student is waiting for an army of goblins, which seem to be many times more than those he killed. Monsters look at an uninvited guest as a tasty morsel. Almost every monster is shown a window with information about its level of difficulty, place in the hierarchy, skills. Shen uses his assessment skill to assess who he will have to fight and clicks with annoyance. There are even water goblins here. Each of them also has pretty good equipment. However, it turns out to be rather stupid to evaluate. There are too many enemies around. The terrain for a major battle is not the best. It will be difficult to turn around here. In their own language, goblins rush into battle, some on horses, some on their own feet. Some had spears, swords or axes in their hands, others used magic. Yun is not horrified and is not surprised by the skills of formidable enemies. Shaman's bath, cavalry attacks, and magicians beat surreptitiously. Clutching a sword staff in his hands, he says that everything will be pretty painful for him if the battle goes according to the goblin's plan. Putting his hand to the side, he uses the main skill of the priest, which he did not use before, Flash. The dungeon, which was dark, is illuminated by a bright light that makes goblins cover their eyes and squint. Some are thrown away by the shock wave. Behind the back of the red goblin, who continued to stay on his feet, Chen suddenly appears. Who uses the basics of the basics, first gets rid of the most dangerous ones. The assassin's skill, stealth, helped him to appear so unnoticed. After cutting his throat with a red-bladed knife, he cuts the throat of one monster after another. Once in the center, the student is open to attacks from all sides. Goblins attack from the back. Yun uses assassin cloning, which allows the clone to possess all the skills of the host and only 35% of all attributes, using such assassin skills as a stab in the back, piercing the heart, splitting the spine. Blood sprays in all directions, and Chen moves like a bright flash among enemies who do not even have time to notice his face before they die. Finally, the dungeon boss reveals himself. The red goblin trembles with rage, increases in size. Chen praises him for being able to get into a rage on his own. The red goblin turns out to be many times larger than the boy, with heavy chains on his hands, jumps at the enemy, intending to crush him with his massive body. However, Chen is not in the mood to fight with him. Now is not the time to fight with him at all. Jumping into the air, he finds himself out of the monster's attack zone. Hovering above the ground, he raises his staff above his head and summons water drops using the summoner's basic skill, summoning the water elemental. The broadcast is cut off. Now, on the screens, an unknown student is fighting with a simple goblin, who would pose no danger to Chen. The audience, covering everyone and everything with obscenities, demands to return that classless guy instead of showing this idiot. Bottles and other garbage are flying into the screens. Why stop at the most interesting? In the broadcast room, the person responsible for the screening says that they have been showing this student for 3 whole minutes. Why not show the others, who are also worthy of the viewer's attention? Another employee hits the man on the head, saying that the viewer wants to see a classless one. Whatever the employee does, he must immediately put Chen back. While they are dealing with technical problems, observers continue to admire Yun's magical skills that turn out to be instant, and the possession of weapons is just great. Besides, as an assassin, student also turned out to be pretty good. What only summoning techniques are worth. Yun Chen is a real monster in the flesh. One of the spectators turns out to be an instructor from the assassins department. And as a professional, he knows all the difficulties of this class. He explains that with each kill, if you slightly deviate from the angle of impact, the attack force instantly loses all its weight. The instructor says that without any exaggeration, we can safely say that the movements are classless at the pro level. A lot of people aren't nearly as good as this guy. That's why Yun is a genius all-rounder in battle. It will be damn difficult to repeat after someone like him. The broadcast finally returns to Chen, who summoned the water monsters in order to finally deal with the goblins. The audience can't help but rejoice at this fact. Not only have they been given back the spectacle they were so passionately waiting for, but also the student called the water elemental. However, Yun himself is not visible. One of the spectators notices that he is already fighting with the boss. It's hard to believe what I saw. The boss's rage has almost exhausted itself. The most exciting part of the boss battle begins. Yun stands in front of the monster, ready to attack in a few seconds. The countdown begins. The student admits that, after all, the boss of the nightmare level is quite strong, even he cannot do without any tricks. On the count of 1, Chen realizes that the time has come. The boss, like a wild dog, rushes forward, holding a short knife in his hand. However, his shovel quickly steps into a trap, which is a mechanic's skill. Such a trap is set to hold the enemy for 2 seconds. Yun, while the monster is standing immobilized, throws a fireball at him and hits his head with aim. However, this does not force the opponent to fall to the ground. On the contrary, anger and rage only inflame. With a bruised right eye, he rushes forward. The goblin does not have time to grab the boy, as he suddenly disappears. Confused, he looks down and sees that his clawed paw is standing right on the bomb. The device emits a quiet beep beep beep, and the next second it bursts in. A fiery explosion illuminates the dungeon better than a magical flash, and the goblin's body shatters into pieces, leaving not even a wet spot behind. The shock wave shakes the space. The smoke begins to dissipate and finally Yun becomes visible. He asks to stop pretending. Even such a powerful explosion is not enough to destroy the boss of this place. And the truth is, even though the monster is burnt now, but it still stands on its feet. Growling with rage, the goblin raises his leg, on the foot of which a fireball forms. The student quickly unravels the enemy's plan. He clearly wants to use his strongest skill called military spirit. However, Chen is not going to let him do that. He raises his hand above his head, opening his palm, and a bright green flame illuminates his fingers. The stone floor collapses when thick green plants appear from under it. The vines, which are Drool's main skill, wrap around the goblin's arms and legs. Then Chen waves his palm, and the plants aim at the monster. The veins in the goblin's eyes are inflated. The jaws are compressed to a grinding of teeth. From above, to finish off completely, ice bullets fly at the monster, which continuously cause damage from the cold, reduce the speed of other people's attacks and movement by 35%. Chen decides not to focus on using abilities. He starts attacks with the skills of a mechanic and a magician, and ends up controlling the summoner's water spirit. Nevertheless, although the student's blows are strong, however, for some reason the monster is still moving, even though it spits blood. The goblin's body is shaking. The audience even begins to sympathize with this boss. He was led by the nose to the very end. The student turns out to be a strong enough opponent with a terrifying power of control. The observers talk about how cunningly Chen carried out his attacks. First, he stole a review for the boss with a fireball, who in turn fell into a trap, and once there, he dug his own grave. This guy has the control skills of every class. It's impossible to escape from such an opponent. It is not only such control of abilities that affects someone else's consciousness. Every move of the student was carefully thought out. Chen did not just randomly use skills. The power of water and thunder can impose an additional effect in the form of complete stunning of the enemy, as happened, for example, with this goblin, who is now lying on the ground without any movement. Plus all this slowing down and control from the vines. It makes the boss unable to attack in response. Do not miss another key detail in the student's attacks. He managed to cancel the cast of the strongest skill, the military spirit, and this became the key to victory. Another observer exhales cigarette smoke and expresses his respect to the guy. The classless ones really have too many skills that are not easy to use altogether, but he skillfully used each of them. It's even hard to imagine how much Chen had to train to get such a result. The man praises Chen and informs his teacher that, judging by what he saw, Yun can get into the top 5 of the province. Another says that the guy can break the school record. The woman brings her congratulations. Jin scratches his head and laughs awkwardly while listening to all these comments. The dean snorts, "These people are looking too narrowly." Personally, he believes that Chen will definitely be in the top 3 because their school record equals this is the 9th place in the province. The principal suggests that teacher Jin sit down next to him. He thanks him for the honor and says that he knew that this boy is not as simple as it seems at first glance. Yun Chen didn't disappoint any of them, that's for sure. The audience begins to admire the classless guy. It turns out that people of this type are so strong. Yun skillfully used all his many skills. The guy next to him claims that Chen is just a real genius. The girl who admired the student's skills before reports that she no longer wants to become a magician. Now she will follow the example of the elder Yun. The teacher slaps her on the back of the head. Does this fool at least understand what Chen is doing? But the girl does not even know how to wield a staff properly. Although she is already reaching out to follow in Yun's footsteps, what can we say about swords, daggers, and pistols? The teacher strictly orders the girl to put all this nonsense out of her head. Let her better ask herself that if she follows Yun, will she be able to survive in the place where Chen is now? What is shown on the screens is not a game at all, as many people think, but the harsh reality that surrounds them, so you can't act recklessly. The girl grabs the back of her head, on which the blow landed, and listens to moralizing that if one mistake happens, everything will be over. The student has nothing to answer to this. The people who look after Yun Chen understand that they can only learn from him, but the disciple is not at all the kind of person who should be imitated. The guy approaches the gate to another room, and behind him are 3 water illusions. Mobier turns out to be cleaned up, so it's time to move on to the next stage. Chen opens the doors, grunting from the strain. The audience is again amazed by the actions of the guy. It seems that he is not even going to rest after the boss battle. He immediately moves on to the next stage. Real madness, a death sentence even for someone like him. Even the director, who was amazed at the abilities of the classless one, swears at him. The guy turned out to be too reckless. The rest of the students did not even have time to reach the boss's rooms. Why did he decide to go on without any rest, although he has plenty of time? The man asks Jin what Jin taught Yun. The teacher nervously talks about what he probably wants to pass in the fastest possible time, since the assessment for the exam also depends on this. Saving time in such a situation is not so profitable. The teacher of magicians believes that death is the only outcome. It's a pity, because they just got such a genius, but now he will sink into oblivion, without having had time to become famous as he should. But the student does not agree with the teacher. Senior Yun still has enough weapons, and someone like him definitely has a plan in his head. The man admits that Chen is excellent in his field, but even with all these skills, he simply does not have enough strength. He is too young and arrogant. There is a high probability that Yun does not know how to use the remaining weapons behind his back. It is still impossible to own everything at once. In addition, the monsters of the next stage are completely high level. Because of this, Chen has no right to make a single mistake, because every indentation can cost his life. The mana costs will be too huge, especially without recovery. It will be spent many times faster. Such recklessness seems to call death itself. Yun assesses the situation. Garbage, like low-level goblins, has finally disappeared. Now only shamans and high-level magicians remain. Now the battles will be more interesting than what was before. With a glowing hand, Chen puts 2 fingers to his forehead, closing his eyes. Yun remembers that the challenge is about to disappear and gives an order to the water monsters. Before they disappear, they must work out to the maximum. After this, as the water illusions comes forward, magic balls of different colors immediately fly into Chen. With the help of created monsters, the student blocks attacks with their bodies. Dust and smoke from the collision of magic balls and monsters settles. Goblins open their eyes. They can't believe that the guy is not just still alive, but still standing on his own 2 feet in one piece. In both hands he holds a pistol, which are pointed at opponents, saying at the same time that it is his turn to attack. The director, observing that Chen has changed the type of weapon, says that the sniper class has quite a lot of basic skills, such as quick throw, deadly shot, quick reload, trail pursuit, slippery lunge, explosion, aerial shooting, and so on like that. This class has a huge number of useful skills, and this makes it one of the hardest classes among the rest. Jin looks anxiously at his boss. The teacher inserts his word that the main difficulty is still represented by the passive skill tracking. Because of him, you have to shoot at everyone without missing. Otherwise you will not achieve much damage, and in real combat it is very difficult. Meanwhile, another teacher crosses his arms over his chest. The classless have a lot of skills. With so many sniper talents, it should not be difficult for him to hit all these monsters. It's easy to flatten. The first pistol shot is heard, and the girl magician jumps with delight. The elder Chen is about to show something incredible again. The bullet hits the purple goblin's forehead exactly. The skill is called stalking. Each hit increases the killing intent. The maximum increase is 25 times. After Yun uses murderous intent, each level of murderous intent increases the rate of fire and movement by 2%. Several hits of pursuit on the trail increases the murderous intent by several levels at once. Goblins continue to throw balls at the opponent, but it is not difficult for the student to dodge them. The main sniper skill he uses this time is a slick lunge. After that, Chen uses rapid fire. After reloading the gun, he jumps into the air and immediately turns over, and then finishes off the enemies with a deadly shot and explosion. The bullets flew in beautiful strokes in different directions and hit the goblins' heads. Chen lands neatly among a mountain of corpses. The audience groans and gasps. The guy shoots only at the heads, but for him a regular hit should already be a real victory. This is a colossal level of mastery. Only real pros could become so accurate. Girls with burning eyes ask this hot handsome to hit their handlebars and dream of becoming his wife or at least a girl. The elder Yun turns out to be incredible with weapons. He is a natural shooter. The guy who used to doubt Chen's abilities now takes back his words. This guy is really a genius of his era. The audience has never seen such talented students. Even the last provincial champion is now no match for Chen. The director laughs maliciously. As he expected, Yun turned out to be not only a calculating person, but also resourceful. Jin doesn't dare say it out loud, but remembers how recently this man spoke in a completely different way. The man who was standing next to the dean and Chen's teacher notices one thing. The student has never used any potion yet, according to the rules of the exam. The examinees can prepare health or mana potions for themselves. The woman agrees. Her colleague is quite right. In addition to prohibited potions of the type that instantly restore all health, a variety of tinctures can be used. However, Yun does not use anything. It is quite possible that they are useless to him. Jin explains that it's not that Chen doesn't need the potions, he just didn't take them. After all, the student's backpack is full of all kinds of weapons and explosives. However, you can keep silent about the cartridges that the student has left. Everyone in the room can see that there are quite a few of them. The director, having lost all his gaiety, again says that he has no right to make a mistake. Is the student reckless or not, just so confident in himself? The audience is watching the continuation of events with tension. It seems that Yun is going to do something again. No one knows exactly what he will do, but in any case, wouldn't it be better to go rest in the next room and then rush into battle? Chen inspects the pistols. Because of the excessive number of shots he fired, they suffered too much, so it looks like you can't shoot them anymore. After all, these weapons were made of ordinary black iron, so you shouldn't expect too much from them. He throws away the pistols. They have served a good service, but it's time to move on. The dean opens his mouth in surprise. Did the weapon break? What happened? If the pistols broke, what class did he have? Jin admits that they were of the cheapest quality, made of black iron. The director screams nervously, not believing what his ears are hearing. He grabs the teacher by the breasts and angrily asks how he even became a teacher if he allowed a student to go to the entrance exam with such garbage. Jin says Yun can't afford more. Chen has a small family. There are no parents. Besides, he has to take care of his younger sister, so the guy really does not have money for expensive weapons. The director listens to this with tears in his eyes. If Jin had told him earlier, he would have gone and bought it all for the boy himself. Now he is already beyond reach and the man cannot help him. Chen finds himself in front of the next doors. It turns out that the boy managed to go to the room of the final boss. If you calculate the time spent, then killing the boss as quickly as the previous monsters, he will become the new champion of the province. The director says that the champions of the whole province have not yet left their school. If Chen achieves this, then the dean himself will become a director who has gone down in history. The man talks about what a wonderful seedling the boy is. If he suffers because of the poor condition of the equipment, then do not demolish his gray head to the teacher Jin. The old man prays that Yun Chen will do everything possible for the sake of victory. Now not only the life of the guy himself is at stake. A new trial is about to begin. Senior Yun is already entering the final boss room. At this time, the rest of the participants, it seems, still could not cope with the commanders. They were not shown on the screens, so it was impossible to say for sure. However, with almost 100% probability, it can be argued that the guy has a chance to become a provincial champion. Observers will witness how history is being made. Classless hasn't used all the weapons behind his back yet, so there are plenty of things that Chen will show. The broadcast breaks. The screen is covered with gray ripples. The audience can't help but be outraged. They stopped at the most interesting thing again. What kind of things are going on at all? The rest of the students passed the exam no better than the average fighter, so it's not interesting to look at them at all. However, suddenly one of the observers points his finger at what is being shown on TV now. There are dead bodies there. At the moment, there is a dead guy on the screen, whose chest is pierced through with a sword. Black liquid, like blood, is everywhere. The student was one of the adjurors. Someone saw him only yesterday. Now the person is dead. Panic is rising among the observers. While they were watching the elder Yun, others were fighting with the goblin commander, and almost every one of them died at his hands. One of the students was actually killed while he was using the return scroll. The scroll is recognized by the residual scroll. Still, some manage to escape from the clutches of the commander. The surviving disciples emerge from the gate. They're all bloody. The guy says that everything is very bad, but he has to go back. The girl next to her, without addressing anyone, whispers it is impossible to fight this monster. A student who has fallen face down to the ground reports with annoyance that he has not even reached the second stage. Now he will not be accepted into any good educational institution. Some are not going to put up with this state of affairs. Others have already given up. The audience understands that not everyone is as strong as Yun. Watching him, they completely forgot about how difficult this exam really is. The students who decided to take it are much older than the audience in terms of level. However, it is difficult for them to cope with the monsters of the dungeons. Many of them were seriously injured. The observer grabs her head. She is silent about the rapid passage. There are only thoughts about how to survive to the end. The guy next to her is talking about how scary it is to fight against the commander. He didn't even want to study and fight with any existing creatures at all. The director hurries the stream to be switched to Chen again, because dead and wounded bodies greatly undermine the spirit of other students who have not yet achieved any heights, but are already on their chosen path. In past years, many people suffered during this exam, but all with the classes of teachers passed these tests to a greater extent. In the same way, Yun Chen became the best, without any doubt. Jin looks at the elder's back, in the headmaster's head. Yun has surpassed everyone. Now his preferences should change in the direction of this kid. The stream switches to the older student. During the time that the losing students were shown, Chen managed to move on to the final boss battle, which is about to begin. He walks along a corridor with a flat floor and sharp stones on top of the ceiling. Chen stops in front of the dais. Forward only the throne on which the main boss sits. The goblin jerks his head up. This place is not at all where such a weak little man should have been at all. In the hands of the monster is a huge club. Yun scans the opponent with his gaze. Next to him from the information window he learns that he has the name Monarch of the Mountains, level 16. The difficulty pulls on gold, and the skills are not known at all. The only note says that the Scarlet Cloak is a symbol of the Goblin Lord. Chen reports that he fully expected that from the nightmarish final boss, the force would be almost physically pressing. He also speaks human. The student sees such an unusual phenomenon for the first time. However, Yun, as in previous times, does not feel a drop of fear. Clutching the handle of the weapon in his hand, which he immediately pulls out, he says that the monster has only a miserable 20 seconds left to live. The monk's main skill that Chen decided to use is called Blood Rage. Talent increases all attributes by 80%, as well as attack speed, movement, and penetration by 75%. However, all this pleasure is shared only for a measly 20 seconds. After this time, all the attributes of the skill owner fall by 75%. Finally, Yun will use the combat weapon that carried the entire passage. And this is now a battle not just for life, for death. Teacher Jin is shaking with rage and nerves. This step was so unreasonable for a guy like Chen, because this boss could be killed slowly. In that case, why did the guy risk himself? The director is growling with anger. The kid really brought him into a complete state of anger. The old man asks to give him a capote. From such worries his blood pressure jumped unacceptably high for his age. The disciple's eyes are burning with determination to finish this fight in such a short time. He jumps into the air and swings his spear. The boss admits that this person's speed is high. Nevertheless, how can he be stronger than the Monarch of the Mountains? Confused by such a rapid counterattack, Yun is attacked by the goblin's axe, which calls him too weak. The axe enters the student's body like a knife into melted butter and breaks the floor under the guy into splinters. The audience looks with horror in their eyes at how their new favorite was cut in half. The last boss was too strong even for someone like Senior Yun. Another guy with tears in the corners of his eyelids says that even with bloody rage, it's worth fighting more intelligently. The director quickly realizes that the guy is not dead at all. It was just a clone, and the real Chen created his copy at the time of the frontal attack to distract attention. While the boss was distracted by the fake, the student was behind him and had already pointed the tip of the spear at the back of the goblin's head. The spear neatly cuts through the monster, and when he turns around to kill the insolent man again, Chen uses his staff. The flash blinds the monarch's eyes. He grabs his head and hisses about what the hell is going on. Chen is going to kill the monster, while he is completely blinded. However, something makes the guy tense up. It turns out that the attack was so vile on Yun's part that the Monarch of the Mountains, in a fit of anger, went into a rage beforehand, not intending to give the enemy a chance to win. His condition is proved by the purple flame that comes directly from the goblin's eyes. Chen's spear breaks in the middle under the pressure of the monster. The student clicks his tongue. Due to the rage, the control time has decreased. Then Yun resorts to another method of attack. With the druid's skill, the vines wrap around the monarch's axe. Chen squeezes the reverse end of the plant in his hand and calculates how much time he has left. About 13 seconds to use blood rage, and then the fight will be lost. The goblin smiles at him nastily. The real battle is about to begin. Observers lament. Senior Yun did not use this weapon in previous battles, so why did it break so quickly? The strength should be all right. Although a little time has passed, however, the boss is still intact and has not suffered in any way from the hands of Senior Yun. Could it happen that a disciple, even with a bloody rage, is not able to break through his defense? The girl's teacher shakes her head. It's not that Chen can't break through his defense, it's just the opposite. Yun's attributes are on the heights, otherwise he wouldn't be able to blind the monarch of the mountains. The director says that both opponents have a high attribute score, and both of them have entered a state of rage. This further increases their characteristics. Teacher Jin sums it up. The Black Iron simply could not withstand the power of the student and the goblin. The dean looks sternly at the subordinate. In a battle like this, and in any other, however, in no case should Black Iron garbage be used, which for some reason everyone calls a weapon. The elder asks Jin Sheng if he understands what he is talking about. The teacher apologizes, but everyone understands that these words will not help the boy in any way. The situation is further complicated by the fact that the time of bloody rage is coming to an end, and Chen still has nothing to break through the enemy's defense. In that case, how does he intend to fight? If Jin kills the future provincial champion with bad equipment, then he will not escape the title of the disgrace of the century. Yun is still standing in front of the boss with a vine in his hand. 13 seconds to the end of the basic skill. Chen understands how difficult the situation is. He wanted to finish the battle as soon as possible, but suddenly it turned out to be tougher than expected from the very beginning. It's not easy enough even for him. Yan resorts to the ranger's skill, finding weaknesses. There is very little time left. We need to find a way to deal with the protection of the monarch as soon as possible. The student gets a disappointing result. This monster simply has no weaknesses. The monarch is preparing for a new attack and calls the enemy a nasty boy. He swings at the guy, asking him to let himself be killed. The monster cuts through the air with an axe, but still can't hit the young boy. Yun jumps back from him, and then the monarch raises his foot to bring down the blow on the floor. An earthen wave almost knocks the student off his feet. Because of the shaking, it is hard to stand on her own 2 feet. Chen resorts to the basic swordsman's skill, block when the monster is rushing at him. The boss manages to knock him down, and he hits the wall, not hurrying to get up again. There are 9 seconds left until the end of the bloody rage. Chen is breathing heavily, trying to come up with a new plan of attack. The spectator in despair says that it's over. The bloody rage subsides, and the elder has not yet managed to break through the defense. Besides, Yun is badly injured. Is he really going to die like this? The director comes to the conclusion that if the student's weapon had been a rank higher or he himself was a little stronger, the fight would have ended in favor of the student long ago. Now his sword and staff have fallen into disrepair. Access to sword and magic skills is also blocked. Worse, the guy doesn't have a single healing potion with him. Even ordinary wounds can lead to death, let alone those wounds that Yun received. Chen's head drops as the monster towers over him. He raises the axe over his head, saying that now he can die, which, however, is so obvious. There are a measly 7 seconds left before the end of the bloody rage. Green thorns, a druid skill, cut into the monster's back. The audience understands that even Senior Yun made a mistake. This was his last attempt, because the druid is good at control, but his skills are completely unsuitable for an attack. Although it is rather strange that the monarch of the mountains, after falling into a rage, did not even move at the blow of the spear. Why then does he defend himself from thorns at a time when he could have already killed a man with 1 blow? The director laughs maliciously. Did the student find her? Shen knows that any monster has a weak spot. He felt weak all the time that he was fighting with the boss, but it did not belong to him at all. In the hands of Yun is a new outfit, combat gloves. The guy assumed that the monster had no weaknesses, but such a difficulty could not be in a normal entrance exam. Chen's eyes light up with ranger skill as he scans the opponent for weaknesses again. Previously, he simply did not notice the weak points of the boss. The monster asks not to carry this nonsense. He nervously looks back at the thorns that are creeping up to him from behind. Chen finally figures out the opponent's weakness. It is right under his red cloak. Yun uses a fire fist and jumps into the air, ending up behind the monster. The duration of the blood rage remains only 3 seconds, which Chen decides to use to get rid of the final boss. The monarch growls that the boy has finally achieved his goal. Thorns hold his body, arms and legs, as well as an axe. The observers rejoice. Now the complete victory of the elder Yun will come. The elder's blow flies straight to the weak spot. People support him. They believe in their new favorite. The monster watches as a fiery fist flies straight at him and pierces his chest in the next second. Blood spurts from the goblin's mouth. He says that an attack of this magnitude is the maximum that will knock the goblin down. But it will not kill him at all, so Yun lost. He spent his last chance to win. Even though the blood rage has finished its action, Chen asks if the monarch is sure of his conclusion. The monster does not understand what he is leading to, and then slightly turns his head back to see that he is flying straight at the tip of the spear, which he broke quite recently. The boss does not have time to slow down his own fall and eventually bumps into him. Yun himself falls on his back, but does not look injured. His hands are shaking with fatigue. The system message congratulates the student on completing the nightmare dungeon in some 14 minutes and 47 seconds. The results of the entrance exam were registered. After this reminder, the guy is advised to get an award at the academy for his passing. The audience is delighted with what they saw. In some 20 seconds to kill the final boss, Shen is without a doubt the strongest among the other candidates. Before disappearing, the monster hisses curses, but hardly anyone hears him, even Chen standing next to him. Considering the complexity and time of passing the test, Yun's score is SSS. The guy turns out to be the first to pass this dungeon for such an assessment. Chen's record was also registered. The reward for passing is 650 experience points, 20 attribute points, and 20 skill points. In addition, the candidate receives the tips of the Green Forest, the belt of the Green Forest, and gloves from the same place. Chen gets the title of Goblin Killer for killing the monarch, which gives an increase in damage by 25% for the goblin race. Yun counts the rewards and realizes how solid the reward he has received. Nevertheless, he also turned out to be the first to pass such an assessment, so even the guy understands that he has a good chance of getting into the rating of provinces. However, the student quickly pulls himself together. Do not be so optimistic. He will find out everything as soon as he gets out of here. The system informs that because of the first one to pass such an assessment, Chen will be presented with talent. He has to choose one of the three. Fast spell casting. The casting time of magic spells is significantly reduced. Aura power increases attack speed by 30%. And every third attack deals 80% additional damage. And the third talent to choose from is a stand, thanks to which, when receiving severe wounds, the owner receives a 100% bonus to the attack and the speed of these attacks. Chen says that all the talents are pretty good. It's hard to choose any one. Based on the strategy that the student has chosen for himself, the quick spell is the best fit, so he will choose this particular talent. A glowing jet of light pierces the center of the guy's forehead, and a small green mark remains after it. He acquired the skill Quick Spell. Now it's time to check out the new gear. Shen was more lucky with the weapon this time. It's all gold grade, much stronger than black iron. It even looks better than the previous one. The Green Forest costume has its own effect. It consists of 3 parts. Outside of combat, after 5 seconds, the odds, and stamina are automatically restored in accordance with the physique of the host. With such good equipment, Chen would have defeated the monarch of the mountains in a measly 5 seconds. It's time to go back to your teacher. When Chen finds himself in the square in front of all the people, he is at first perplexed by the silence standing here. But the silence does not last long. As soon as the audience saw their favorite, they burst into shouts of support towards the elder Yun, whom from now on everyone unanimously decided to call the Invincible God. Yun clearly did not expect such a violent reaction and is even lost at first. What kind of god is he? What are they even saying? Did they come up with a new alias for him? The student is approached by his teachers and the school principal. Behind them is a reporter with a camera in his hands. The dean praises the student for how well he did, and Chen is even more lost. The elders stand next to him, and the director asks them to smile wider so that they turn out great on camera. The director informs that the student will be able to receive the results of the entrance exam in 3 days. The maximum period is a week. He will also let you know if there is any other news. And in the meantime, the man allows Chen to go and rest. Yun thanks him. A black, even expensive-looking car pulls up. The audience is shocked to recognize in it the car of the dean himself, who actually asked his driver to take the new record holder. No student has ever been treated so well. Although in front of them is not just an average student, this is God Yun himself. When Chen is already sitting in the car, he rolls down the window and listens to the dean's last instructions, who says that according to his assumptions, this time Yun's assessment is the best. She will definitely enter the top 3 among the provinces, and maybe even the top 1. After receiving the results, Chen will receive additional awards. Then the dean allows the student to go home and tell this good news to his family. The director looks after the departing car. If Yun Chen becomes a champion, not only will he be awarded, but the Dongyan school will receive exceptional attention from the Ministry of Education, which will undoubtedly bring a lot of useful resources. How can you not think about your own benefits? The name of the dean himself will go down in history, as if he somehow was involved in the skills of this capable student. The assistant brings the phone to the boss and informs him that this is a call from the ministry. It happened even faster than the man expected. Yun Chen returns home after dark. The building looks slightly shabby, but livable. The guy opens the door and loudly announces that he has finally returned home. The younger sister of the guy says that just in time. The food is ready, he can sit down and eat right now. Because of her older brother's exams, she cooked a lot of food, even managed to put some meat on it. It must be delicious. Their father died on the front line 10 years ago, during the invasion of the evil orc royal palace. His mother worked to feed him and his sister, then also went after his father. Having lost everything, Yan Chen and the younger relative were forced to live on benefits to this day. Even the equipment that Chen fought with today, the guy got from his late father. It was very old. Over the years, in order to allow him to train, Yun Tang, the sister, took over all the household duties. No matter how much the elder asked, she did not give up the idea of helping him in any way. The girl is stubborn and strong, especially for her age. All Chen can do to pay her for her kindness is to work on himself 10 times, or even 100 times more than other people. Now, after today's victory, things should go better. Everything will certainly get better. Tan puts a deep plate in front of him and asks how the exam went. The elder admits that there was one difficulty, but in general everything went well. The dean even said that he was provided with a place in the top 3. After receiving the results, another generous reward was laid. The sister's eyes light up. Is everything that says true? And they will finally be able to eat meat every week. Shen Lekovo calls her a fool and clicks on her nose. With the rewards they will receive, they will be able to eat a lot more. In the future, meat will be in their diet every day. Listening to his sister's laughter, the elder promises to provide her with a better life. A few days pass. During this time, Yen was able to accumulate skill points on daily tasks quite well. After passing the entrance points for the tasks, a lot more began to come. Also, after moving to the top 7 of the academy, Chen will have access to the skills of hidden classes. Before the guy has time to enter the house, Tan runs out to him, who hugs the elder tightly and informs him that he is number 1 throughout the province. This is not something that surprises Chen. He has been waiting for such news for a long time. But he asks why he did not receive the message himself. The younger one shows him the phone, forgotten by his brother before jogging. The gadget is simply bursting with calls and messages. Opening the number book, Chen sees several dozen missed ones from the director. When the phone starts ringing again, the guy picks up the phone to answer the director. The student is almost swept away by the scream that the director gives him. He loudly resents the fact that Chen does not answer his calls, but quickly omits this problem, and immediately goes to the main thing. Yun must come to the senior after lunch, as the commission will come to him. On this day, the guy will have to choose a university. Yun admits that he doesn't even know where he wants to go, but, of course, he is looking forward to this meeting. 3 years ago, when Chen first came into this world, he was tested for what kind of talent he has. Putting his hand to a stone that resembles a crystal, the guy learns that his talent is called Almighty. From the top of Chen's head, it seems to pierce with some kind of lightning that does not allow him to move. The Almighty. The students behind laugh. The talent is really shoddy. There can be no question of any benefit, because what's the point in limiting the skill increase? Even if you increase the talent by 3 levels, will it be able to match the class skills? Of course, the answer is no. They are in completely different categories. Yan Chen is a real loser. Jin asks the student not to lose heart, because life does not stop at talent. Even in such an unpleasant situation and with such talent, a guy can still choose a pretty good class. Even going outside in a heavy downpour, it's still spinning in Chen's head. Almighty, this is his talent? How so? He sits down on a bench and wonders what will happen if he gives his best. Suddenly, a system window appears in which it is reported that the system will help the guy in his chosen class and provide all the conditions for becoming the strongest in this world. It shocks him a little. He didn't even think he would get the same one as in the web novels. But what's the point of having her? Will he be better than the others? A notification arrives in which the student is asked to choose a path of development. Right now he is choosing a classless path. When a choice is made, the system binds it. 3 years flew by as if in the blink of an eye. As a classless, Chen became the first in the province. But what does this system give him? Achievement comes for the completed task. The almighty talent increases. All skills can be improved to the 3rd stage. Chen receives divine skills called Divine Lightning and Super Self-Healing, an item of the S-rank Cross of Rebirth. In addition, he gets 50 attribute points and the same number of skill points. Chen can't help but rejoice at such a generous reward. Apart from attribute and skill points, he even had his talent upgraded. This means that all his skills have become a level stronger. Besides, even the skill limit has risen. The original strength of E-rank skills, however, with his talents, it can reach C-rank. Now the strength of the skill is comparable to the B+ rank, which is stronger than some class skills. The Cross of Rebirth, one of the awards received, is automatically consumed when the owner sweeps away, and the owner himself appears at a safe point. It's as if a second life is being granted. This cross is a real jewel. With super self-healing, the owner's cells are endowed with tremendous vitality, which will avoid many serious wounds. Divine Lightning is a mysterious spell that can move through space and in addition emits lightning. Chen even begins to think that the system is worried about his life. Tan runs into the house and talks about the real chaos going on outside. The older brother is shown on the news, and there are rumors everywhere about his huge reward. Reading today's news, Chen asks to postpone talking about it for later. Many people are already trying to use it as an advertisement. Tan says that this is a huge amount of money, which my brother will not refuse, right? Yan replies that he will accept gifts only from the Ministry of Education. He will refuse other offers, because the most profitable will always be the one from whom nothing is required in return. There comes a time when you have to go to school, where a commission is waiting for him. Reporters ask Yun Chen's classmates about what kind of person he is and what it's like to study with him. In order not to be recognized by reporters, the guy put on glasses and pulled the hood almost to his nose, listening to conversations about how someone asks his friends to tell about a joint trip to the toilet. This is complete madness in Chen's opinion. If he hadn't thought so carefully about his disguise, he definitely wouldn't have gotten into the school building. These journalists were wandering around the house, and now the guy is starting to worry about whether his younger sister will cope with them. The headmaster and teacher Jin are already in the conference room. The dean welcomes people from the best academies in the country. All of them, of course, came for the sake of the provincial champion Yun Chen. The curator of the admissions committee of the King Academy, Wu Hua, is dissatisfied with the fact that, according to local news, one student introduced a trend of classless, which made everyone reckless, and the school principal laughs to brag about it. He loudly puts the glass on the table and demands that Yun Chen immediately choose his class. Otherwise, he might not even think about visiting the King Academy. The director looks gloomy and asks what the guest means, because Yun Chen is already the champion of the province, and it was he who showed everyone what he is capable. Does Wu really want to take away the exclusivity of the guy? Hua continues to stand his ground. Everyone in this office should understand that classless people have no future, and this unspoken rule applies even to the champion. The man sets a condition. Either the guy chooses a class, or forgets about their famous academy. The guy, a student of Tian Yuanzhu, sitting next to Hua, asks the mentor not to be angry, because the truth is that Dongyun is in the wilderness, because a student from the backwoods is not worth a drop of their attention. She whispers to a satisfied teacher that this arrogant student has already abandoned his future, choosing fleeting popularity for the sake of evaluation. Obviously, the guy is not very far-sighted. Hua grins. After all, he found a loophole to get the highest score. In that case, he is definitely not worthy of the threshold of their academy. Here Jin enters the conversation, who calls the student Tian a boy and asks him to stop talking nonsense. The fool does not understand how hard it is to be classless, so let him stand and be silent in a rag. Yun Chen is a true champion who didn't use any loopholes. Hua asks how confident Jin is that he wants to continue to defend his opinion so fiercely. His good advice is that the teacher should calm down. A black-haired woman enters the conversation, from which a frightening black smoke emanates. She says that Dongyan School is their educational institution in Jiangnan province. So does mentor Hua really think that she will let such a rude provocation get away with it? Hua grins. What can this woman do? They have much more talents. Starts an argument in which everyone tries to shout over each other. The dean asks to immediately stop the senseless swearing. Are they here to recruit a student or to fight with each other? Tian says peaceably that they are undoubtedly here for recruitment, but they have a lot of suspicions, because it seems that the reporters inflated the entrance exams too much and not all of them are true. The door opens with a click, and Yun Chen enters, who, without greeting anyone, rudely asks Tian if he is running into him. The director already wants to introduce the representatives of the academy, but the guy interrupts him. He could hear everything they were talking about here, standing right outside the door, so there was no need for extra greetings. Young comes face to face with Tian and asks if he wants to check if everything he said is true. The student is interested in how they can check it. Chen, with a gloomy look, challenges this guy, and if he does not win in a duel in 5 breaths, then he accepts an indisputable defeat. Chen doesn't even believe that he is going to be defeated in just 5 breaths. The student laughs. This guy just graduated and already dared to challenge him. He doesn't know how much he values himself, but apparently it will be easy to let him down a little. Jin asks his ward to calm down. The King Academy is one of the best in the country. It is not so easy to spoil the attitude with its representatives. Besides, Tian has been studying there for more than a year, so he is many times stronger than Chen himself. The student grins. Some people here got cold feet, although everyone in this room heard that it was not he who challenged, but their favorite champion. Jin must have heard that. The dean evaluates the chances and understands that the opportunities are not on their side. Yun Chen was too fast. His opponent has the 19th level, and the guy himself is the 13th, which is a monstrous difference. However, the old man is no longer able to prevent the battle. They decide to get together at the gym. Mentor Hua announces that it is enough for Tian Yunju to hold out for 5 breaths, and he will win. However, an impudent student of this school should be taught a lesson. The student asks the teacher not to worry. He will smear the boar for 3 casts. The dean says they can only hope for a miracle. Tian shows his staff. He is a magician himself and asks what the opponent will use. Maybe he combines sword and magic skills. Chen admits that the sword staff is damaged, so only the staff works. However, this is quite enough for Yun to win. Tian is angry. Does he want to defeat him with magic? The kid is just crazy. The student starts casting. He himself is in excellent shape, so the cast speed is only 0.7 seconds. The boy will not stop a fighter like him in any way. Before Tian has time to do anything, a purple fireball is already flying at him. Yunju can't even believe that the guy casts faster than he does. Now you have to interrupt the skill. The student puts a magic shield in front of him, which prevents him from harming himself. The unexpected happens. The shield suddenly begins to crack and then collapse. It's impossible for a fireball to have such power. Tian only manages to look up when he realizes that he is now being attacked by several balls from above. A powerful explosion occurs, which does not harm Chen in any way. He announces the end of the duel. The black smoke dissipates, and because of it, it becomes visible as Tian lies on the floor and can hardly breathe. There are fire stains on his skin. Chen approaches the fallen man, stepping on his back. Is this the strength of a King Academy disciple that Tian dared to brag about? Jin seems to be much more surprised by the victory than everyone else. Frontal attack with instant fireballs, thanks to which the fight lasted only 2 seconds. His disciple was able to defeat a 19th level magician with magical skills. Even magicians don't have such a fast cast. The director is impressed. This is the evolution of talent, because during the introductory Chen's fireball had a red color, and now it has turned purple. The almighty Yun is really developing. The only drawback of classless ones is that over time they reach the peak of skill, which is why the gap between classes eventually becomes huge. However, the student's talent not only increases the level of skills, but also tends to develop. At this rate, it will become stronger than before in a very short time. Combined with his incredible fighting skills and flair, Yun Chen is a genius in a million. Meanwhile, the student is surrounded by representatives of different academies. One sentence is better than another. Hugh, mentor, who is disgraced by such a performance, insists that there is no sense in a talent developed only once. The guy has no future outside of his school. Who can even think that he is worth anything? People are starting to mock him. Today the King Academy has lost its face. His disciple is still lying on the ground. Maybe it would be better if Hua helped him. But he turns around and heads for the exit, not intending to give any help to this mockery. They can't help but react to this trick. The king representative doesn't care even about his own student. This says a lot about their competence. People immediately ask Chen to forget about these shamefacers and listen to other more profitable offers. A black-haired woman approaches and tells Chen that since he is the best graduate of Jiangnan province, he should enroll in their local academy. She promises to provide him with books with basic skills of all classes. Some people should only dream about this. Talents are not limited only to their country. There are many people with other classes abroad. For example, the Fuso country, which has classes such as ninja, onmoji, samurai. In the West, there are witchers, sorcerers, and even vampires. A stranger with a pale scar on her face explains that by joining on the recommendation, Chen can get access to the hidden class, of course, if he tries hard. She tells about the alchemy workshop at their academy and the forge, which will equip him to match the skills available to the future student. The woman offers him a polymorphic weapon. Other representatives already imagine how much Jiangnan Academy will go bankrupt. Books with the skills of classes from other countries and hidden classes are not so easy to get, plus expensive polymorphic weapons on top. All this goes to one student. The offer made by a stranger is ideal for a classless guy. In this case, the choice becomes obvious. Yun Chen stretches out his hand to shake the palm of the representative, as a sign that he chooses Jiangnan Academy. Although many are upset by this state of affairs, they are not at all surprised that the student chose the local academy of the province. After a meeting with the commission and a small duel with Tian, Chen goes to the park to train his new talents. He jumps to the top of the gazebo and applies divine lightning. When he returns to Earth, he leans against the trunk of a tree and says that this skill is just something. The distance and speed of movement surpass all his previous skills. However, it is also exhausting. A notification arrives on the phone. From the academy and the school come a total of 7 million. Chen can't help but say that they were really generous. Besides, the rest of the awards should have been delivered by now, so it's time to go home. Suddenly, a car stops in front of the guy, from which 2 people get out. In the hands of one of them is a long case, and they introduce themselves as people from the Jiangnan Academy. The man says that this is one of the promised items, polymorphic weapons. The guy reverently opens the case, which seems to glow from the inside. There is a beautiful-looking spear in it. Even tears come to your eyes when you look at it.